Today's episode of the DCAU Review is brought to you by Anchor by Spotify, the easiest way to make a podcast. When Liam and I first started the DCAU Review, we discovered a few different things. First of all, you had to have somewhere between Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne level financial resources in order to be able to pay for a website to host your podcast. You also then had to have Richie Foley level intellect in order to figure out how to both edit and then get your podcast distributed onto Apple or Spotify. The great thing about Anchor by Spotify is that all of these things are available in one place. Everything you need to make a podcast is available all in one spot. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And when hosting on Anchor, it makes it very easy to then distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many more. And the best thing about Anchor is it is totally free. So what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app today or head over to anchor.fm and get started in creating your own podcast with Anchor by Spotify.
This is Will Friedle, the voice of the future Dark Knight, Batman Beyond, and you're listening to the DCAU Review hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app. And remember a few things. First, Dana deserves better. And second, I am Batman.
His name is Zeta. He's kind, gentle, and also a top-secret military weapon. But he's made a decision.
I will not destroy anymore.
Now, with the whole world chasing him,
Please help.
he's on the run with his only friend.
I'm equipped with a built-in credit card. I can generate as much money as I need.
You are so taking me shopping.
The Zeta Project.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 219 of the DCAU Review. I am Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, the still poorly named Future Month continues here. And for better or worse, we're back with another Zeta Project review this week.
You know, we have an ad now at the beginning of our podcast. We should really consider taking the pennies that we have made off of that and invest in a focus group and test out future names for months. Because this one is not our best. I'll say that. We're working on some other stuff that I think is better titled. But yes, Future Month continues, and for better or for worse, as you mentioned, we have another Zeta Project review. Again, if you've tuned into these, thank you, because there aren't many of you that listen to them. We're currently strategizing and figuring out how we can still call ourselves the DCAU Review and inflict as little pain upon you, the listeners, and us in having to subject weekly or multiple weeks in a row of this show being reviewed, because it's not very good. But we will continue nonetheless, as we have promised for this month at least, with our next Zeta Project review with the episode Remote Control, Liam, which originally aired back here in the States on the Kids WB back on February the 10th, 2001, meaning we just a few months ago passed the 21-year anniversary of this episode's airing.
That's right, Cal. And this is the IMDb synopsis brought to you, of course, by the Pod Tower YouTube channel, where you can find every episode of our show, as well as content from other great DCAU content creators. I can go up there and subscribe to us. It doesn't just help us out, and give us a subscription there, and like the videos. That all helps bump us up in the algorithms and all that. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe to the Pod Tower. And in the meantime, I will present us with our synopsis for Remote Control, which is written by Ralph Saul, directed by Kurt Gaeta. There's a name we know. Mm-hmm. Music by Christopher Carter and Michael McQuistion, and animation by Coco. And that synopsis reads as such. Z and Ro go to a place where Selig used to work, searching for a lead. An awards show will be taking place, showcasing new inventions. One person has invented a remote control and uses it on Zeta.
Not exactly a synopsis in my book. That was like a dissertation on the episode. Too lengthy, too many words.
Yeah, it's
asked for a paragraph. We just asked for a brief synopsis. Man invents remote control that is able to control Zeta and make him do things against his will.
That's right.
Ro has to race to stop him.
That is the long and short of it, Cal. As we get into our plot here, Ro and Zeta are still on the hunt for the Dr. Selig, who we learned the name of in the previous episode. They go to this facility where he used to work, which is some sort of some sort of research and development lab, and there seems to be some technical difficulties going around as they try to find out if Dr. Selig is still there. They find out, one, that no, he isn't there, and also that the technical difficulties were caused by one of the residents of this facility, this kid named Bucky, who is causing all kinds of havoc as a result of the headmaster of this facility. I don't know if we ever get like a name of what this guy's position is exactly, but the man in charge has, I guess, banned him from entering his technology into this upcoming science awards show. That is, of course, one of those.
Yeah,
What is it? Are you trying to get thrown out?
No, I was trying to show you that the inductance controller works. This baby's the ultimate remote. You just load in any schematics and it runs the device. Could we just...
I know how it works, Bucky, but you're still banned from the Innovation Awards because of behavior like this.
That's not the reason. You're up to something. I know you're an imbecile, but even you must get how cool this thing is.
What did you say?
He said...
I know you're an imbecile, but even you must get how cool this thing is.
How did you...
What did I say about doing that? Great impression, huh? Hey, it's obvious you two have a lot to hash out. So as long as that computer's working, you think you could look up a name for us?
And in the process, Zeta sort of inadvertently gives himself away when he repeats exactly what the kid Bucky said to one of the adults back to him in Bucky's own voice. So there's some Bucky immediately is suspicious, but Zeta and Ro leave and they go to recharge in a hotel that night. And as Zeta shuts down, we cut back to Bucky, and he's looking, and he's just couldn't get this image out of his head, and so he does some sleuthing. And I was he hacking here, or does the NSA just have like a public website that he was on, do you think?
I guess it was intimated that he was hacking, but it was just that it was not clear. So therefore, I don't know. It was poorly described, as many of this episode seemed to be, as to just how he was able to get into the NSA's database to discover. Also, this just goes to show. We talked at the beginning of the series why Zeta picked this personality and like visual to choose to be, but at this point he's a robot that can change himself to look like anybody, as we see at the very beginning of this episode. If he knows that the NSA is on the lookout for him, why would he not change what he looks like? That makes little to no sense.
Very good question, Cal. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And the obvious answer is because they don't want to do 1,000 different character designs for one character. But that's
budgetary reasons,
right? Right. But that's not our fault, and it's not the fault. Like they're the people that made the show, the writers, created this idea. Bob Goodman, the showrunner. The idea is he can change into anyone. There are no limitations put on him. He doesn't have like some sort of virus that makes him revert back to this one form over and over again. Like you can write your way out of this if you really wanted to, but they don't. So he just sort of voluntarily goes back to this one form that many people have seen him in, including the government, who is constantly on his tail, although they don't really show up in this episode.
Nope.
Despite Zeta publicly attacking people at this awards show in a couple minutes here. But
in a facility that says no trespassing, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, no NSA or agents on the run this week. So yes, as mentioned, so Bucky figures out that Zeta is this Z8 infiltration unit, and I guess downloads the schematics to Zeta's blueprints, and
because those are also readily available on the net.
Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
And Bucky is able to then, we see Zeta, who is powered down to try to recharge back in the hotel room. He suddenly darts awake and is very quickly aware that he's not in control of his action. Ro tries to stop him, but of course can't, because he's this all-powerful robot, and he escapes. He steals a car, and all he can tell Ro is that he is headed east. That is all we know. And we find out that Zeta is going back to this facility, and that Bucky is in control of him despite Zeta's best efforts.
Titanium alloy, cornblatt axiom construction. Hey, where are all the cool weapons you're supposed to have? Where's the plasma rifle and the long-range grenade launcher?
I threw them away. I don't hurt people anymore.
Oh, well, you still got some cool stuff in you. Whoa, where you going?
How are you doing this to me?
Any circuit emits its own inductance, right? I just loaded your schematics into my controller. It found your inductance and took control of you. Simple, really. Oh, do that hologram thing. Be a boxer. Be a ballerina. Be me. Gosh, you're handsome.
Yeah, I know it feels like we're breezing through this plot here, Cal, but there's not really much to it. And so from there, once Bucky has Zeta in control, we are headed off to this awards show where Ro and Bucky and the rest of these scientists working on these awards all kind of come to a head.
Yep, and we see that Bucky is not only there, and as you mentioned, he's banned. The lead professor has banned him from participating in the contest, so he's there to take out revenge on his competition. So he sabotages several other people's inventions with the help of Zeta under his control, forcing poor Zeta, to destroy and be a mean bully to all these other nerds that are creating weird science, indescript science projects. And so after he sabotages it, Ro shows up. She is also easy for her. Big signs on this chain link fence that she passes through that has a Zeta-like shape cut out of it, as if we're watching a Looney Tune. and as she gets through, and it easily breezes through any sort of security, she happens to run into our Dr. Tanner, the as you mentioned, the headmaster, the head professor of the college where Bucky is attending, and she tries to get his help looking for Bucky, as she's deduced that Bucky may in fact be possibly, actually she's asking specifically about Zeta first, and then she notices Bucky peering out from behind a curtain, and he's holding in his hands this remote that he had used to make everything go haywire and give through a whole bunch of exposition in the first scene, the little breadcrumbs that has Ro recognize and realize that he might be the one that's causing this malfunction in Zeta. So she's able to track him down behind this curtain and confront him, and he does in fact reveal to her that he is in control over Zeta, and just as it appears that she may be about to convince him or attempt to convince him to stop doing what he's doing, there's a distraction as we see Dr. Tanner taking the stage, and it's revealed just why he didn't want Bucky at this awards ceremony, and it's because, wouldn't you know it, he's a skeevy guy that takes credit for other people's inventions, and he is on the stage about to do a presentation for this remote control and take credit for Bucky's invention, and this sends Bucky just over the edge. So he decides to send Zeta out to interrupt the proceedings. Zeta, complete with his new wrist saws, starts marching towards the front of the stage and begins chasing down Dr. Tanner. So he starts running away, and Dr. Tanner, by the way, has his own version of the remote. So Ro chases him down and begins inquiring just how they might be able to use this version of the remote to override Bucky's version of the remote. And Dr. Tanner gives more exposition for things that we already knew, which is that they need the schematics in order to do it. And in order to get the schematics, they'd have to download them first. Meanwhile, Zeta is like zombie walking towards them. This guy is a killer robot, can definitely run. And it's intimated at times that he can sort of resist it or put up some sort of resistance. So maybe that explains it. Part of it, I guess. I don't know. But at no point does Zeta run. He just sort of like Frankenstein walks for the entire episode in this slow speed chase scene. Except for this scene as they're coming down the hallway, which he decides to finally run. And they come to a dead end. The doctor is attempting to get through the door, finally does seemingly escape. So it's at this point that the doctor's actually cornered, and Bucky is basically about to kill Dr. Tanner with Zeta's new wrist laser that we didn't know that he was also equipped with. So Dr. Tanner's hiding under a desk, and Zeta is slowly walking, about to kill him, begging Bucky not to make him kill somebody, as he's sworn off killing, as he's and trying not to kill this poor professor. And right at that moment, Ro finally steps in, and she's able to take control as she somehow was able to get the schematics, and she can now control Zeta too. So there's this battle between the two of them with the remotes, and now they both have control, and it's a tug of war over who's going to control Zeta first. And so in true tug of war fashion, and being able to outsmart, even though he's a brilliant teenage scientist, Ro outsmarts him by thwarting him through gravity. And she finally, in this tug of war, kind of lets go of Zeta's control. Zeta falls backwards on top of Bucky, and Bucky throws the remote in the air, and it lands and breaks. So that's the end of the remote. And then as Zeta is no longer under control of Bucky, he gets up and lends a hand to the doctor, who at this point has already confessed on a screen that was broadcast to the entire award ceremony that not only did he steal Bucky's invention, but he steals all of his inventions.
Please, Bucky, stop this.
No!
What do you want?
Admit it. You stole my invention.
All right. Yes, I stole your invention.
You've stolen all your ideas. You're just a parasite.
Yes, I'm a parasite. I stole them all.
And you're gonna get everything you deserve. What? Let go of my friend. I'm not done with him yet. You can't use D like this. He's as much a person as me or you. More than you. He's a robot, a toy. He doesn't have feelings. He does too. You think you're so smart. I'm smarter than you. Want to bet? College types.
And it's at this point that Bucky has a little bit of remorse and says that he wasn't ever going to try and kill Dr. Tanner. He only wanted to scare him enough so that he would confess. And Zeta doesn't take too kindly with this, and his wrist saws come back, and he walks towards him, and he threatens him and makes him promise that he's never going to do something like that again. So Bucky does. And That's kind of the sunset on the episode. As we walk out, Ro asks Zeta what they should do with this extra remote, and Zeta snaps it in half. Ro jokes with him that would have been fun to keep it, but they drive away into the sunset. And mercifully, this episode is over.
Yes, it is a pretty lackluster ending there, I would say.
Ending our whole episode, because I would argue lackluster, not a great one. Maybe bottom of the barrel when it comes to episodes of any program that we've watched. 218 prior episodes here.
Like, I understand, like, because we've talked about this, the first couple episodes are very much taken after The Fugitive or the old Incredible Hulk series. It's this guy on the run because he's wrongfully accused and he's trying to clear his name, but he has to keep running and all that. And he meets some wacky characters in every new location he goes into. It's like, but like, we're 3 episodes into this series and they've already like deviated from that. And this was just like this one. I mean, other than at the start of the episode, they're in this facility because they think Dr. Selig works there, and it turns out he just used to work there. Like, there's not really much of that through line at all here. And so we're this early in the series and we're already we're bored with it already. We're already like moving to look for like wacky one-off.
We got to do side quests, man. We got to make this thing last 13 episodes or whatever this ungodly series is. It feels, I guess you're breaking the norm. At least it's not the formulaic, well, your princess is in another castle type storyline here where you're constantly chasing this creator down. But this it just felt like, thankfully it's less than 22 minutes. It's 18 minutes of runtime of just spinning your wheels. You got to at least have some sort of action. And I get it. We've talked about it also before. Bob Goodman's original idea for this series was not what ended up being produced and directed and put on the screen, because he had an idea for something much darker. And unfortunately, this is geared towards children, but it's done in that way that, so many of those cartoons in the 90s and early 2000s were, where you almost insult the intelligence of the children watching the episode. It's like there's no where's the action here? Where's the tension? Mm-hmm. The tension is Zeta gonna kill somebody? Like, is it I guess, but like it's even convoluted at the end where they throw in this curveball at the very end that actually the doctor isn't that good a person, and maybe actually he deserves this sort of treatment because he's feeling these inventions. It's like, well, why do we have to create this weird conflict as if there's some sort of moral high ground here for Bucky because his inventions being stolen? No, this kid he's bad. He hacked and is using the main character for his own personal gain and gets a slap on the wrist at the end of it. But we're supposed to feel like there's some sort of justifiable reason for him to take over Zeta. Because his invention's getting stolen. And actually the big bad professor is actually the bad guy. Like, I get it. But that's been done so many times in the DCAU by this point. How many corporate or like main overlord characters that are just the evil guy, and you have to create these other characters that have these shades to them, like a 13-year-old or 14-year-old, however old this kid is supposed to be. Like, I don't need him to have shades of gray in this in this storyline. Like, he can be the bad guy. He's the bad guy for hacking Zeta. Let him get punched in the face at the end or slip on a banana peel or whatever solution it is. But we don't have to make it like there's some sort of justification for his behavior, or like I said, shades of gray. So I didn't like this episode. It was boring as all get out for the most part. Half of it is watching Zeta like walk around, like I said, like a zombie. It like you said, it deviates completely from what if the plot is we're supposed to find Zeta's creator, and that's what it is. And you only have 13 episodes anyway. Why do we have to deviate here for this? Use this hacking storyline with something else. Like use it with more tension, some sort of like end of the world scenario, something that's more than just like, oh, he might kill this professor, but it would be okay and justified because the professor is stealing other people's stuff. Like, no, I don't want to see that. Gave this score a 1 out of 10 for plot.
Wow.
Did not like this at all.
Yeah, I think to me, the only vaguely interesting element of this is, and we'll talk about it later in voice acting, is Zeta pleading with the kid to not make him hurt people, because that's the last thing he wants to do. It's the whole episode of Beyond where this character debuted. It's every episode of this show, right? He says it at the start of the show every week. He was created to destroy. He doesn't want to destroy anymore. That's the only like interesting thread of this. And so weighing it down with like, yeah, some the whiz kid takes control of him to get revenge on the professor for stealing his idea, and then I don't know, it just like there's a nugget of something interesting in here, but to have it kind of wasted on that, you could have even, I think, if you take out the element of the kid, if you want the kid to be sympathetic, you can have him, act out and be sort of a brat and sabotage the facility that we see at the beginning. But then what if he figures out who Zeta is, but rather than taking control, like he goes to Zeta and Ro and asks them to help him like prove that this is his invention. And then it's more like a spy caper, and they're trying to trick the professor into getting rid of it. Like that's still kind of wacky and silly and not very high stakes. But at least to your point, that would actually make with Bucky a little bit more of an interesting or sympathetic character, and there's more of a real villain getting their comeuppance at the end there. So yeah, overall, I don't believe I said my score yet. I gave it a 3 out of 10. So I did not like it too much myself. But clearly I liked it a little bit more than Cal did. And yeah, so just kind of a swing and a miss here. And we will move on from there to our second category, Cal, which is visuals. As we sort of talked about, not a heavy action episode. We have that bit where Zeta is like breaking out of the hotel and he like falls down the drainage pipe. I thought that's kind of wacky, and steals the car. And then we have his buzzsaw hands. that's most of the tension, the physical or visual tension is there. I think that one spot where Ro and the professor close the door and the buzzsaw is kind of stuck in between the doors, and then all of a sudden the buzzsaw starts going again and they have to kind of dodge out of the way. I think that's kind of fun and has like a little horror movie motif there for a second, but not a ton to write home about. I didn't notice anybody being like off model or anything, but as far as an episode goes, I like that Zeta has like little sad eyes while he's being controlled. They like turn the eyes upside down to let you know that he's sad about being mind controlled.
We talked about that at the beginning of the first review that we did of Zeta, which you can hear in the archives at DCAUreview.com, versus his initial appearance on the Zeta episode of Batman Beyond. Adding the like pill-shaped head for him, the Osmosis Jones or whatever that character. I think of Osmosis Jones every time I see his character model. But adding the pill head for him as opposed to the horseshoe head gave him the opportunity to show more emotion. And while I don't love it more, I understand why, and it certainly does a lot in this episode to drive that point home that he's really not happy about the fact that he's being hacked and somebody's attempting to use his powers for evil. So yeah, I would agree with you. There are a couple other notes I had. There's one bit where right after he's kind of brought him into the fold, Bucky realizes that he can change his form at will. So he makes him turn into a boxer, and he's kind of Zeta's original form, but with like a little bit of Rocky Balboa look to him. He's got like a black eye, or Rocky Marciano, I'm not sure, one of those old timey boxers, or one of the not that Rocky Balboa was, but either Rocky Marciano, real boxer, or Rocky Balboa, fake boxer. And then he turns him into a ballerina, and then he makes him change into him. Earlier on in the episode, also, I kind of thought it was funny as they first enter the college. When they're looking for the doctor, he volunteers. They are trying to figure out, Z and Ro are trying to figure out what story they're going to tell in order to pass as to why they're looking for his creator. And he says that she says, "Oh, you can tell him you're a distant relative of his." And so he tries to put a form together using what his creator looks like, and then like making him younger and somewhat resemble him. And he's like this, and she immediately tells him, "Yeah, that would be a good idea if the security guard hadn't already seen you, like, so switch back." So I thought that was funny. And like there is some hijinks that occurs as he's like smashing the other nerds inventions at the science fair, and then destroying things. And as I said, I as much as low tension as it is, his zombie walk or his Frankenstein walk, I think is pretty effective to show that he's sort of, I guess, putting up somewhat of a fight against this remote control that's working against him. And then lastly, they chose to go with I guess this is slightly before the digital animation. I don't know if these were done in digital animation or not. Do you know?
I think this would be, because his episode of Beyond is in digital animation season, and by the time this season is airing, this season I think actually paralleled to the last season of Beyond, so we would definitely be in the digital animation era.
Even then, it's not CGI, so it's still hand-drawn digitally, but the scene as they're running down the hallway, I thought that was the choice not to do painted backgrounds and sort of animate the walls and animate the pathway that they're running down to try and chase, they being Z and Bucky, as they're chasing Ro and the professor down this hallway. I thought that actually, albeit brief, it was animated pretty well. It looked pretty good for a show that didn't have a real high budget. I did notice one reused explosion. I think it was a Superman the Animated Series explosion that was used late in the episode, but they did use an original explosion as well. So not a ton of action, as we mentioned, not a lot to really write home about here, but so I went with just the middle of the road. I didn't think there was anything offensive, and as you mentioned, nobody off model, nothing really looked bad, so I just went with the middle of the road. 5 out of 10 for my score.
Yeah, same for me, actually. I went 5 out of 10 as well. I did notice with the flipped up hair that Bucky reminded me of Jimmy Neutron a little bit. So I don't believe that's intentional, because I'm pretty sure this actually predates Jimmy Neutron. But
maybe Jimmy Neutron was inspired by this episode of
the Boy Genius. Well, as we'll get to in voice acting, there is a Nickelodeon connection to that character. We will get to that in just a moment, Cal. But first, we will, of course, talk about the music. This week, we have Christopher Carter and Michael McQuistion, 2/3 of the Dynamic Music Partners group. And got to be honest, the only real notes I have for music are in that first scene where Zeta's kind of taken over. I thought there was some good like tension building music in that scene. And that kind of builds into the more faster paced music as he breaks out of the room and jumps down onto the street and all that. But other than that, I don't have a ton of notes for music this week.
Yeah, I only had 3 total. I had that same exact one as as Bucky takes over. There's some good synth and some kind of weird science-y music sounding in the background. And then it actually kind of kicks in as he kind of begins trying to hold on to the wall inside the hotel and is being dragged away. So it does build up the tension in that scene. I thought it was pretty effective. And then I think there's music later in the science fair scene that stood out. Again, very synthesizer, very techno, and just kind of goofy and nothing that was too serious or memorable or hummable. But and then lastly, the chase scene, as we mentioned, the pursuit with Zeta and Bucky going after the professor and Ro trying to help him escape. I thought that the music in that at least again added to the tension and certainly the atmosphere of the scene. So yeah, it's nothing terrible. I could argue, even though I'm about to give it the same score as my visuals, that it was the strongest thing of the episode. Some pretty good compositions, but it does kind of get lost in the goofiness of the episode. For that reason, I gave music a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I ended up giving it an exact same score, as 5 out of 10 as well. Nothing particularly great, I thought, but it played its part. It did what it could to add to a pretty lackluster story, I think it's safe to say. So yeah, no complaints, even if there isn't necessarily anything spectacular to write home about either of our musical scores, Cal. And from there, that will bring us to our final category, which is, of course, voice acting. Not a huge cast this week to talk about. Really only 2 guest stars in addition to our main actors. I will just mention, as mentioned, the voice of Bucky. We have his name is Ulysses Quadra, fantastic name, who played the character of Twister on Rocket Power, most famously, who also had a little flip up of our chair on the front of his head. So maybe a little visual nod to that character as well there. But yes, he is. He is. I mean, he sounds like a kid actor, and I assume that's like a legitimate accent that he has. He wasn't putting it on, so the character didn't look particularly Latino to me because he has like orange hair.
Right. Yeah.
But
his name is Bucky.
Yes. So he didn't really. Obviously, there's nothing. It just kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I guess I kind of settled into it. But again, especially by the end where maybe we're supposed to feel a little bit of sympathy for him, or, he's supposed to be selling like he's really kind of gone off the deep end, and we don't really get that reveal until the last second that, he was never really going to try to get Zeta to kill anyone anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he does like a terrible job, but I don't think he does a particularly great one either. And maybe that's just some of the risk you run with the younger, when you cast a younger actor in a show like this.
Yep, I wasn't a fan. I thought that everything he delivered, I didn't think he delivered anything bad, but I thought that everything was done in the same tone and kind of had the same general notes about it. So it didn't, and when he was supposed to be mad, it sounded the same as when he was supposed to be, kind of happy or excited about terrorizing this professor. He didn't come across with like a hint of evil about him. He just everything was just kind of one note, in my opinion. So didn't love the performance from Ulysses.
Yeah, and then elsewhere we have Stuart Pankin, or Ponkin perhaps, as the other professor of the episode, Dr. Tanner. Again, I don't really feel like he gets a lot. He doesn't get much to do, even though he ends up we have the little twist at the end that he's kind of a shifty guy and everything. I guess he plays a coward pretty well. When Ro is trying to get the second remote control to work, and he's just sort of completely flummoxed by the whole situation and can barely answer her. I think he does a pretty good job in that scene, maybe, but nothing too great to write home about in his performance. And Stuart Pankin's another one of those guys who, you look that guy up, you've definitely seen him before. A lot of guest starring roles in like smaller roles in various projects, but yeah, he's I don't think he does a bad job, but maybe he gets a little bit. Maybe if we had let him stretch his more comedic muscles a little bit more, we could have had a little bit more fun this week.
Yeah, I didn't have any notes for anything that stood out for me as far as good or bad. So sure, just okay.
Yeah, that's I think that's totally fair. And then of course we have our two leads. We have
Wait a minute, you're gonna miss Earl Bowen?
Oh, that's fair. We do have Earl Bowen, just very briefly, who folks might famously know, probably most famously from his role in the Terminator films. Although I honestly I didn't notice until I looked at the IMDb that he was even in the episode. So
I knew it was his voice just because it's so recognizable, and it is just brief. It's the alter ego that Zeta uses to smash the one invention, and he asks if it passed the 3 bonk test, and then he proceeds as the person that invented it is sort of flummoxed. He begins to show what the 3 bonk test is, and that is he smashes it with 3 fists. So.
The system then combines the data from all these sources, summarizing the full atmospheric and seismic spectrum into a single quantifiable unit.
Very impressive. But has it passed the 3 bonk test?
The 3 bonk test. Is that one of the...
Oh, look at that. Guess it was unstable. Better luck next year.
Yeah, that's the only reason why it stood out to me, is because his voice is absolutely recognizable. Of course, I think we last heard him as Simon Stagg. So, yeah,
absolutely,
very recognizable.
Very good point there, and then would have been remiss not to mention him. So a good catch by you there, Cal. And then yes, we have our 2 lead voice actors here. We have Julie Nathanson as Ro and Diedrich Bader as Zeta once again here. And again, I think their performances are continuing to be the only thing I really find myself enjoying about this.
Absolutely.
About this show. I think they have great chemistry together. I believe that Ro really cares for Zeta and is genuinely worried for him when he's running away, as Z is sort of pleading with Bucky not to make him go back on this vow to not hurt anyone and everything. Like that's the, like we said, that's probably the best thing in the plot, and I don't even know if it would be that memorable from a plot standpoint if you didn't have Diedrich Bader and Miss Nathanson playing those roles, because that to me is the best stuff here.
No, absolutely, and unfortunately for most of the episode they're separated, so you don't get as much of the chemistry. You get a little bit at the beginning, and then you get a little bit at the end. But unfortunately, most of it is between Bucky and Zeta and Ro and Dr. Tanner. So you don't get as much of them playing off each other, which of course robs you from some of that enjoyment. On their own, they're great. Together, they're great. But just not a lot. I didn't think there was one thing that stood out necessarily, other than, as you mentioned, Zeta's plea that he's sworn off killing people. And then, as you mentioned, Ro's continued expression of caring deeply for Zeta and helping him to keep that oath. So, yeah, they're perfectly fine in this episode. I wish we had gotten a little bit more interaction between the two of them. But that would have required probably a better plot. So it's not, definitely not their fault.
Absolutely, Cal. So I guess that will bring us to our scores for this. And like I said, I like our 2 leads as I have pretty much every week. But unfortunately, I think our villains kind of let us down in this week's episode, and I ended up settling on a 4 out of 10 for my voice acting score.
Yep, I gave it the exact same score for the exact same reason, 4 out of 10. Unfortunately, the villains didn't do much, and in fact, at some points, I felt like hurt the episode overall. So, yeah, brought it a point down from what would have been just a middle of the road score anyway.
Agreed, Cal. All right, well, that will bring us to our final scores here, and tallying everything up. Looks like I have a final score of 17 out of 40.
And I am just a few points lower because I really didn't enjoy the plot, and I gave the lowest score for a plot that we've had in quite some time. So I ended up with a final score of 15 out of 40.
Wow. Well,
nope. The answer is no. We don't ever need to watch this again.
Ironically, I would just say the character of Bucky does come back quite a few times.
Son of a gun.
In this series.
Are you kidding me?
No, he becomes like a bit of an ally to Z and Ro as the series goes on. So
Oh no.
he has at least a couple more appearances. So I don't know. I think
For the series, yes, it's a one thumb up because you
yeah.
might want to know who this character was. Maybe, I don't know. We reserve judgment. I still say throw this away.
Oh,
Never,
man.
ever just wipe it from existence. Any platforms that host this just need to just delete it from the face of the earth. Let's just all sign an agreement together to get rid of this forever.
I think I think that's more than fair. Yeah, so a begrudging one thumb up for the series as far as the overarching DCAU. Of course, like everything else related to Zeta, it really doesn't matter. So that will begin to wrap us up here, Cal. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you are listening to this episode, you are a real trooper and
a true fan, a man amongst men.
That's right. We appreciate it. And like we said, next time the Zeta reviews come around, we're kind of toying with a few options of where we can maybe knock a couple out in one single episode of our show, maybe a little less detail given, but just kind of to get through them, because yes, as you now like to throw back at me as a negative, I was as we were discussing this podcast when we were first starting it some almost 5 years ago, Cal, we had the idea to turn it not just into a Batman the Animated Series podcast, but a podcast covering the entire DCAU. And for better or worse, as we keep saying, the Zeta Project is part of that. So we're going to be kind of figuring some stuff out, I think, the next time Zeta comes around. But
you know what we could do? I was just thinking,
mm-hmm.
You know how like when a show back in the day, kids, there used to be network television shows that would get a full season ordered. Beginning of the season, you get 13 episodes or 22 episodes of a show. And then when the ratings hit the toilet inevitably, except for a few shows, like by October, they would say, shoot, nobody's watching this. Advertisers are upset, but we still have these shows. We got to burn through them somehow. So you know what they did? They would dump them on like a Saturday night at like 8 o'clock when they knew absolutely no one was watching, and they could still get some sort of ad revenue for them. So maybe we just quietly dump all of this on the pod tower one day. We're just like, you know what? Folks, we just dropped 2 full seasons. The rest of the entire Zeta Project is up for you to listen to whenever you want to at your heart's desire. Because boy, that sounds like a novel idea. Because doing this every month or every month is it's going to be interesting. I'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure, Cal. And so we will, as we said, continue to experiment with that. But of course, Cal, as folks would know, if you've looked at a calendar, we've got one more Saturday, of course, this month of July. And that 5th Saturday, as always, means we are taking another trip around the multiverse.
That is right, Liam. And we will be reviewing a series that we have never reviewed before. So while you have your thinking caps out here, like, what could that possibly be? Nope, not Super Friends. Nope, not Teen Titans Go. Nope, not the 1970s Batman Filmation series. Nope, those are still hanging out somewhere in the background. No, we are going to break into the very popular and exciting Harley Quinn animated series, formerly of the DC Universe app, the wonderful DC Universe app, and now, of course, streaming on the HBO Max app. And it's due to come back here for its latest season here, and not in just a few weeks, I believe. So we'll be reviewing the very first episode of that series, which is titled "Till Death Do Us Part."
That is right, Cal. Can't wait to break into that. Obviously, it's a show with a lot of fans. I think I have seen this pilot episode, but it's been a couple years because I think I maybe watched it when it first debuted. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching it with fresh eyes and seeing an alternate take on a character that's obviously very important to the DCAU, because that is, of course, where her origins come from. So it'll be fun to tackle that with you next week. Of course, that is next week, though. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, whether you do so on Apple or Google Podcasts or Spotify. If you do listen on Spotify, we actually have some special poll questions that are exclusive to that app. So if you listen there, you can give us a little nudge there and let us know. You can head to our website, DCAUreview.com. You can find our store there. You could pick yourself up a hat or a mug or a sticker or something like that if you would like to support us financially. But again, a free way to support us is definitely, as we already talked about, subscribe to the Pod Tower on YouTube, subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice, and if that app allows you to leave reviews or give us 5 stars, please do that as well. We always appreciate that feedback from you. You can also follow us at DCAU Review on Twitter and Instagram. Same username, both places. We always look forward to discussing things like, there's not usually a lot of Zeta discussion, unfortunately, but we always we appreciate the few that do reach out to us about our episodes and what they would like to hear us cover next. So please continue to do so on those socials. Can't wait to tackle the Harley Quinn animated series next week. But until then, I'm Liam.
And I'm Cal.
And we'll be back next week with another episode of the DCAU Review.
Adios.